Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I've got to do this on the go a little bit because I'm going to be a little bit busy today, but in the middle of running an errand right now. But I just wanted to kind of let everybody know that this video is going to be a little bit different because this is the collection of all of the fruits of the Spirit videos I've been making for the past few months. Originally, I'd only planned on it just being a few short weeks, but with the passing of my mother-in-law, there was a lot of focus I had to pull from the videos online and put it back onto family, being there for them. But I wanted to make sure that I did get all of the videos together to make this one fairly long video. I think when I looked at it this morning with all the fruits of the Spirit, it was like an hour and 20 minutes. So it'll be a little bit longer than that with the inclusion of this as well. But really hope that you can just sit down, and if you haven't had a chance to watch any of them, this will be all of them at once. I hope you enjoy it, and let me know what you think. Thanks. Good morning, everybody. So, for the next few weeks, I want to try to take a look at the fruits of the Spirit. And I'm just going to be going in order that we read them in Galatians 5, 22, and 23. What I'm wanting to kind of do is at the end of all of it, I might put all of them together and make one giant video. So, we'll see. I don't know how that's going to go. My wife's alarm is going off. Hold on. Okay. Let's try that again. Okay. Try going over them in order. In order as we read them in Galatians 5 and 5, 22, and 23. It says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law." So first up we have love. Now I just Googled what the definition of love was. And just a heads up, this might be a little bit of a pattern that we see in the next few videos that I do. But what I found was 4 definitions that really kind of caught my eye. It's an intense feeling of deep affection, or a great interest and pleasure in something. To feel deep affection for someone. To like or enjoy very much. Needless to say, when you love someone, it's a very good feeling. Think of your friends or family that you just couldn't imagine not being in your life. It'd be a terrible thought. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, think of somebody that you can't stand. Just makes you mad as soon as you see them or hear about them. Well, Jesus tells us in the Bible that we are to love that person as well. And in Matthew 5, 43 through 48, and this is out of the NLT, it says, "You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. And that way you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. If you love only those who love you, what reward is there for that? Even corrupt tax collectors do that much. If you were kind only to your friends, how are you different from anyone else? Even pagans do that. But you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." A little different than what we're used to. And see, that's what Jesus is, something that we aren't used to. The world can be a cruel and bitter place, but not Jesus. He is loving and forgiving, a complete opposite than what is considered to be the norm that we know. Jesus flipped what was considered to be acceptable on its head. In eating with tax collectors and prostitutes, he was being an example of what we are to do as well, to love all. Not to be high and mighty, which, by the way, he is the one true high and mighty, but to realize that we all need salvation and that we all are flawed, that we all need him in our life. Jesus had this deep love and care for outcasts, a love that often gets forgotten by churches and people of today. I am no better than anyone else out there. You are no better than me, but we all need Jesus. We all need to have the same spirit of love within us. Back when I was growing up in youth, I can remember my youth pastor saying something along these lines. I'm going to be paraphrasing this really bad, but he said that we live in a microwave era. I want it now. It's all about me. It's still true to today, but I would rather change it to the smartphone era instead. Today we get so self-centered that we forget about the part of us that really needs to be there for others. Could you imagine a world where everyone gave out the same love as Christ did? Everyone would probably break out in song and dance like a musical. Or at least we would see and feel the warmth from one another that is so absent and leaves us feeling so cold and lonely instead. It's terrible. I don't like it. I've known people who really just light up a room when they walk into it because I can see God's love in their heart. That's what I want to be able to do, to really add to the room and not take away from it, to really reflect Jesus. When you have that love of God, it should be noticed when you are around. People should be able to take notice and think something is different about that person. In our interactions, we should be expressing God in all that we say and do. My pastor reminds me of this and reminds our church of this constantly, and he is so correct. Love should be a focal point in our daily lives. 1 Corinthians 16 and 14 says, let all that you do be done with love. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, how can I love somebody who treats me badly? Please stop and realize that when Jesus was being beaten, tortured, and crucified, he still loved those that were doing these horrible actions to him. In fact, on the cross, he said in Luke 23 and 34, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's just crazy, flat out crazy. He still loved those men that were being just so completely blatantly evil to him. While literally being murdered, he still loved them. That's the kind of love that Jesus has. And that is the kind of love that we should have within ourselves for every single person that we come into contact with, because Christ is within us. So those people who are just being mean to you, I don't mean to undermine anything, but it doesn't even compare to what Jesus went through. We have that ability to still show love to those that hate us. Difficult. Yes, it will be. Is it impossible? Absolutely not. I really think that God made love such a deep emotion for us for reasons that we can't really begin to understand fully. We are made in God's image. So in God's image, love becomes a part of that because God is love. It's talked about so much throughout the Bible, love. And if it's talked about so much throughout the entire Bible, I don't think that it really should ever be forgotten or undermined. So I'm challenging myself and everybody that's watching this to get out there and show the world what God's great love really is. Change someone's life by loving them the way that Christ would want us to love them. I sound like I might be a little bit of a hippie, or with my long hair probably look like one too, with all of this love talk, but it is biblical. There's a rapper that I listen to, and I've been listening to for many years, KJ52. He's got this saying, I hear it in a lot of his albums, if not all of them, I might be wrong. But he says, one love, one God, and one way. It's a simple and excellent motto for us to live by. You know, there's an entire world of hurt out there, and it's really just longing for that love that they may have never experienced before. You can show that love to the world, and spreading God's love, you can really change the world for the better. I want to see that happen. Lives changed forever. Homes mended back together. Churches growing. People just coming into God and God's presence. That's what I'm longing to see. I could go on for days about love, but I'm going to end it with this. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. And that's John 13, 34, and 35. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next video. It will be called Joy. Oh, good morning, everybody. I am sorry. I look like crap right now. I just got done with my second job. I'm wore out. I haven't taken a shower in like 5 weeks. I'm kidding. No, it's been like 7 weeks. I'm sorry. I'm just really tired today. But Beyond Faith is back. I am back. Sorry, there was just a lot going on for the past few weeks. It's called life. So I had to take a step back, focus a little bit, but I have continued to write, so I'm ready to make this video. Sam is on her way home right now. I'm trying to film this video before she gets home. I really hope I can get this done before she gets here, so I'm going to try to jump on into it. But so this is the next fruit of the Spirit. It's called joy, and I just got to say that I thought it was kind of funny. I was listening while at my second job just now. I just noticed like there's this like really creepy looking doll over here. Sorry. While I was at my second job, I was listening to the podcast Cooper Stuff. And I thought it was really interesting how, while I was listening to it, he was talking. This was one of his podcasts from last year, but the subject matter that he was talking about was at the beginning of coronavirus. He was talking about joy. I'm like, oh, well, that's appropriate for what's going on today. Maybe if I had a little bit more time to write about it, then maybe I would have incorporated that a little bit into here. But I don't have time for that, so I'm going to try to hurry up. But when I was writing all of the notes that I have right here on my handy dandy phone, I wrote down joy, and I wrote it down capital J, capital O, capital Y with an exclamation point, because that's how you have to write joy. I mean, I had to do it that way, in all caps with an exclamation point, because that's what I envision when I hear joy. That's in a Christian life. So, but joy may be a short little 3-letter word, but it is such a strong word at the same time. It carries such emotion in such a quick little word. In a description of it, we can see blessedness, bliss, gladness, happiness, and so many other good feelings. You know, we receive joy from Jesus and his amazing grace. No longer do we sense this dread in death, not to be morbid or anything like that, but no longer do we sense dread in death, but we have a future after death with a life in heaven forever with our Creator. That's something that we really look forward to, what's next after this life, not just in what's next after this life, but also during as well. I'm sorry, I'm trying to speed through this a little bit. You know, we know as Christians that there are great plans for us in this life, and that gives us an excitement for things that are to come. Opportunity seems to be around every single corner, a calling that we are just waiting to fulfill. Joy really does begin to flood every single part of our life. Even as non-Christians, people are still looking for joy through money, love, material things, drugs, or anything else that is only temporary. Using a grounded mindset that the world has, they will always be disappointed when their temporary joy is over. However, a permanent joy comes from Jesus. It's not of this world, and it is eternal because it comes from our forever eternal Father in heaven. Even crazier is the cost of that joy. Nothing. It's completely free. All we need to do is ask Jesus into our hearts, and this is just an extra that comes with being a follower of Jesus. One of the fruits of the Spirit is joy. The world wants to put a cost on happiness. In reality, money can't buy true joy. I mean, that only comes with Jesus and having him in our life. In John 15:11, it says, "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full." Jesus loves it when we have his joy in our life. Because in the last video, we kind of talked about love, Jesus love. And because he loves us, he wants us to receive his joy. It's kind of like it trickles down from the cross and into our lives. You see how that kind of works? Joy comes from Jesus. If at all you feel saddened, then I'd recommend that you think of what all Jesus has done for you or is doing for you in your life, and that joy will begin to flood back into your life. You just have to sit down and get off of yourself and focus back on Jesus. I'm not trying to be mean, but that's all it really takes. You know, we can always find time and reason to have joy. I mean, I remember as I was writing this video, I was at work, which is not my happy place at all, not when I'm there. But I was listening to my worship music, which at work I get made fun of a lot for listening to my worship music. But I find a lot of joy when I get picked on for that music, because I know that the people that are saying crap to me and talking that trash or whatever, they're hearing it. They're hearing the words in those songs where it's worship and they're, saying it bothers them. And I can realize that it's having some kind of an effect on them, whether they think it's being negative or not. It's playing at them, it's tugging at them, it's still bothering them enough to where they have to say something to try to get me to turn it off. They're being reminded of Jesus. And in that, I find a lot of joy in telling them in even a slightly annoying way about Jesus. It can be difficult sometimes to hear all the negative on a constant basis, but when I hear something bad about my Jesus music, I just turn up the volume a little bit louder. Call me Henri if you want, but it works. After the joy entered into my life, the joy that Jesus gives me, excuse me, I lost my place. After joy entered into my life, it was something else to see how I started every single day, positive and ready for opportunity. It was this awesome excitement of what was next, me trying to fulfill my part in God's great plan. And I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know where God is going to have me, so don't misinterpret what I'm saying here. But anticipation of every interaction with someone that I met. I don't want to be selfish with this joy at all. It should be shown to everybody. In sharing Jesus with others, we are giving them the chance to also dwell in this joy. I mean, it's like a wildfire. It's like a wildfire, and when it starts, it really begins to spread and spread and spread until it's this massive thing that's going on within our life. 1 Peter 2:9 says, "But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of the darkness into his marvelous light." At the end of these videos, I put "share Jesus" in every single one of these, or at least I'm pretty sure, or is it at the beginning? It's in the video somewhere, I know that. But not in a sense of share my video necessarily. If you share them, awesome, thank you. But more of a sense of share what Jesus has done for you. I want that to be something that you can tell other people about. Share your testimony, share your joy. The world is looking for joy, for purpose, and for somebody, to really want them. You can be the one that shows that to them. You can be the one that displays your joy, and people will begin to notice it. People will begin to feel that joy. It spreads. It's contagious. That's maybe a bad usage after coming out of a pandemic. All right. So that was kind of the ending of the notes that I had up to recently. But what I want to do right now is I want to kind of flip this around just a little bit, real quick. Now let's talk about finding joy while in a dark place. What do I mean? I mean, like, if you were at a point where you feel down or you have been dealing with struggles, it's kind of something that I've been dealing with a lot here lately, especially going into a job. It's hot, it's miserable, I can't hardly stand it. But you can find joy in your darkness and your dark place. Sounds a little bit crazy, completely crazy, right? Yes, it does. Wrong. No, completely wrong. Because it's kind of like the saying goes, when you hit rock bottom, there's no other place to go but up. Now, in the midst of the battles we face, look to the horizon and see that there will be an ending to the struggle. So we know that we're in this bad place, but we know it's going to get better from here. That's how we find the joy in this moment. There is coming another day, another ending to despair, another light, another victory, another enemy fleeing from us, and another blessing. That is what's to come. Oh, wow, I said that completely wrong. That is what's to come, and it's what to find joy in while we are in our darkness. It may feel like it won't end, but remember, God is the author of the ending. God has already written our future, and it's a good one. God already has us safely in his arms, and that is a reason to have joy bellowing from within us for all of the world to see. A future that is better than any we could ever imagine is right there in front of us. It's coming. It's right there. It's so close to us. God will not abandon you in the darkness. God will guide you through it all. God will build you up for what's next. He will not forsake you. He will not forget you. He will not hold joy from you. And I'll stop this video by saying that when you do have the joy down deep in your heart, like that Sunday school song goes, you'll be amazed at what comes next. And I'll talk about it in the next video, because the next thing that comes after that joy is peace. And I'm going to stop this video with one last scripture verse to kind of take with you with joy, okay? Especially when you're dealing with your hard times. James 1, 2, and 3. My brethren, Count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, which I think we'll get to that in another few videos. But guys, thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for waiting on these videos. I'm looking forward to doing the next video. Peace. But until then, peace. I'll see you in the next video. Good morning, everybody. So if you're watching, or if you have been watching the videos for the past few weeks, you'll know that we've been going over the fruits of the Spirit in order that they're written in the Bible. Last week, we were talking about, all capitalization, joy, and that leads to what we're going to be talking about today, peace. And I got to say that I was not looking forward to making this video at all because my AC went out of the house. So I was like, it's going to be super hot in here. And even if I recorded it somewhere else, and it was going to be hot when I came in here to edit it, and I wasn't looking forward to it. But I got a lot of peace today when they came and they fixed my AC. So it is done now, and it is a nice crispy 70 degrees in my house, so it feels much, much better. But peace, okay? So we're talking about peace. Something that I find very interesting about peace is that it's talked about a lot among mankind. People will talk all the time about how they hate violence and how they're always longing for this type of unity, but instead we always get this disunity and more violence. Now, why is that so interesting to me? Well, I'll tell you, because I've noticed that without God being at the core, then true peace is pretty much impossible. If you think I'm wrong, then let me remind you that man's natural instinct is that we are all evil. We have sin in our lives from the moment that we are born. So from mankind's first disobedience in the Garden of Eden, we have sin in our lives. It's mankind's curse for all time until God comes back. With sin, there comes many evils, and a lack of peace is included with that. But man also knows the need for peace, and that's why mankind is yearning for so much peace these days. I mean, you got to think God was our source of peace. God was there with us in the Garden of Eden, so when that was taken from us, it was almost like a part of us was taken away. That's why we long for it, in my opinion. There have been countless types of worldwide utopia attempted through various methods in all points of history, and all have and will fail. Why? Because only a true peace can come from God. Through a domino effect, we can see that God gives us love. That love for each other then will flood us with joy, which can lead us to a true peace that is not born of man, who is evil by nature, but instead of God. Through his great love, gives us the fruits of the Spirit in overwhelming abundance. Peace from God is something that is really perfect to talk about on Beyond Faith because God's peace is truly beyond us. Now, I had to put that in there because it really is. God is perfect. There is no wrong that he can do. So therefore, God in his perfectness, or at least I think that might be a word, is 100% peace. And pause real quick, before anybody decides to try and ask me about the wrath of God, remember that there is this thing called cause and effect. God will not give out his wrath unless it is completely justified due to a lack of reverence to him, i.e. our sin. So God doesn't actively go out and just seek innocent people who could suffer his wrath. It's all completely justified when God deals out his wrath. So even though he does deal that, he is still 100% peace because it is completely justified. But I'm getting off subject here. But I want to take an example of how peace from God can really change somebody. And in that, look no further than in Acts chapter 8, Saul. Now, I've talked about this guy on here before, and I don't want to dive too crazy deep in here today, but just a little bit. Saul was not peaceful in the least bit. I mean, off the rip from when we're introduced to him in the Bible, it's talked about that not yet Paul, soon Paul, currently Saul approved of the execution of Stephen. It could be, I've heard it said that it's in theory that Saul was there helping in the stoning of Stephen. It's only speculation on that because it doesn't really specify for sure, but it does say that Saul approved of it. Saul in the Bible would literally go into homes, and this is all in I think Acts chapter 8 or 9, one or the other. Saul would literally go into the homes of people and drag people out of their house and send them to prison, or worse. And when I read of Saul, after first seeing him in the Bible, or first reading about him in the Bible, I just imagine this guy that is so unbelievably full of rage and malice, and he had just struck fear into all people that were around him. Or when anybody knew that he was going to be coming into the city, people would just cringe in fear. And I just imagine like one big bad burly dude. After his transformation, though, everything began to change. He was so overwhelmed with peace. Here I want to point this out, because remember in the Bible when I say he would literally drag people out of their homes? So I imagine at least that he was a fairly big guy, or at least somebody that could hold his own, in a fight or something like that. But after his conversion, the Jews began to plot. Wow, I'm having a hard time speaking. Began to plot to kill him, and he escaped from Damascus down the side of the wall in a basket that's read about. And what's so interesting to me about that is that, first off, Saul had a heads up that to what their plans were, so their element of surprise was gone, and in turn, he kind of had the element of surprise. So Saul could have taken this opportunity to strike back at them before they were even ready, but he doesn't. Instead, he chose to leave Damascus. Being sneaky in his escape, he was choosing a peaceful resolve. I love that. I just thought that was so interesting, considering who he was just mere days before all of this happened. That type of change, that type of change, and that kind of peace just really can't just happen, at least not from a mere earthly perspective or for any earthly reason. That is God and his peace at work. I've heard of a phrase, and I'm sure many others have as well, about God, and he supplies a peace beyond understanding. I've heard that quite a bit, and it really is true. Only God can take the worst types of people, addicts, murderers, the downright evil, and turn them into some of the greatest and most beautiful testimonies that we have ever seen. And it really does it becomes a display of God doing the impossible. Look into the mirror and think about who you were and what God has done for you since you've accepted him. And if you're not following God, then words can't even begin to describe what God is capable of doing in your life. It's truly beyond what you'll be able to comprehend, at least for this moment. Tough situations do come up in my life all the time, and it really does shake my boat. I do have bad days, believe it or not. Like my AC going out. That's tough. That's tough to deal with. I'm spoiled having AC. I like it too much, especially because we're at work. But recently, somebody told me that the more that I sit and think about the bad situations and how I can solve it, the more that situation can bring me down. So for the tough days, instead, we need to give it to God. Just sit there and think to yourself, God, this is stressing me out. You already know what the situation is, and you can help me overcome it because you supply me with peace. I am yours, and I give my situation to you. That should be something that we're constantly doing. In John 16:33, it says, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world. I think one thing that we often forget to do is simply just ask for peace. We get so involved with trying to solve our problems and stay in an earthly mindset that we often overlook what we need to do. And it's the simplest thing. Ask God. Currently, I'm going through some issues where I work, and it can bring me down. Totally wear me out, stress me out, make me feel horrible about the whole thing, about my day. But after I really can stop and get over my own self-pity, then I can ask God to help me. I did this just at work the other day, and it was a pretty unique feeling just when I sat down and I just prayed, giving my situation to God, and I could just kind of feel that weight get lifted off of me, and I just felt much better throughout the rest of my day. I went off my notes, sorry. God can help you in your situation, even if you are in the middle of it, no matter what it is or where you are. It can happen just like when I was at work and I was just praying to him, and I just felt that relief almost instantly after I got done praying. I've been reading a book recently about a pastor that dealt with all kinds of malice from people from his own church in his own home with his family. And yes, it did upset him. And the book that I'm reading, he's actually a very well-known pastor, but he's talking about how the church that he was wanting to help out, they didn't want his help just because they knew who he was. And he was in tears, and he was still sweeping the sidewalk because he just was surrendering the situation to God, and he still wanted to be able to do everything unto God. It was pretty amazing considering how he his mindset of doing everything unto God, but he gave his tough situation to God. I thought that was so interesting. I may sound like a broken record here, but I know for a fact that I overlook asking God for peace all the time. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that does this either. That's why it becomes so important. You know, you are a child of God, and he loves his children. In 1 John 3, 1 through 3, it says, "Behold, what a manner of love the Father has bestowed on us, that we should be called children of God. Therefore the world does not know us, because it did not know him. Beloved, now we are children of God, and it has not yet been revealed what we shall be. But we know that when he is revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And everyone who has this hope in him purifies himself just as he is pure." Don't believe for a moment that when you're asking God for peace, it's something that's going to be so small that he won't have time for it. God is everywhere. He knows all. He hears all. He sees all. And he does have time for you. If you're hearing my words right now, then you are already a testament to that, because God has created you. And God would not create something so perfect and so unique that he would not have time for. You are special to him, and it's time that you realize that when you ask him for peace, only he can, you are so special to him, and it's time that you realize and that you ask him for peace that only he can supply you with. Matthew 11:28 through 30. "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." These are the words of Jesus. And something else to keep in mind is that God never makes a promise that he can't keep. So when he says that he will give you rest, he will. So I think I'm going to end the video right here. I'm getting a little bit long on my times. But if you need peace, I want to say this one last time. If you need peace, just give it to God. Ask God, and he will supply you with what you need. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you in the next video. Good morning, everybody. Today's video might be just a little bit shorter. Meant to do it yesterday. Had a whole bunch of yard work that I had to do. I didn't have time. Been a crazy week, but just a heads up. But today, the next fruit of the Spirit is long-suffering. And I didn't really fully understand what long-suffering was. I kind of thought it was like being blessed and suffering for Christ. I don't know. So I ended up looking up different translations of it in different Bibles. And the one that I found to be the most common in all the translations was patience. Patience was the basic meaning, but maybe in a different manner than what you would normally think. Because the translations that I saw was patience, not just the ability to wait, but how we acted while we were waiting, or forbearance, which would be like patience, self-control, restraint, and tolerance. Or a patience that endures. So let's look inwardly and think about how we act while we are waiting. Are you the type of person that while you're waiting, you pace back and forth in a nervous anticipation? That's kind of how I am. Maybe you're more like my children that are smiling and have such an excitement in what they're really looking forward to. I kind of envision like kids on Christmas waiting to open up their Christmas presents. Or maybe you just flat out can't stand being patient, so you try to hurry things along as fast as possible. Sometimes I fall under this category. Everybody's really different. There's a saying, and it's patience is a virtue. And I think we've all heard that said many times before. And in the Bible, you can find so many different verses about patience, it's not even funny, kind of like this one. In Psalms 37, 7 through 9, it says, "Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret, it only causes harm. For evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait on the Lord, they shall inherit the earth." I think that having patience coincides with having a reverence for God's timing. We need to be worried about growing in God and not focus on where we are in our growth, just that we are doing it.
and not on the progress that somebody else has made or hasn't made. Don't get me wrong, it's wonderful to see and hear about others growing and taking great steps in their growth with God, but we shouldn't be jealous of that growth. We should be celebrating with them what God is doing, and we should also be working on ourselves in this process. In our own lives, we can't simply just wake up one day and we can't just wake up one day after being saved and expect to know everything about God's plans within our lives. That's impossible. Only God can do that. But if we were hypothetically here, if we were able to know everything about God's plan over our life, it would honestly probably terrify us. This is why patience is so important to have. Step by step, God takes us on a journey through life. At some points, it may be easy. Other parts of the journey may be much more difficult. But when we get to the end of the journey and we look back and have a better understanding of everything that God was doing, that will be such a rewarding thing to behold. A piece of advice that I have learned is that I need to ask God to open the doors that He wants me to go through. Sometimes I've prayed this, and within minutes, that door is open plainly and clearly. I can remember one instance where where I had prayed that at a service at church, and before I had left the church, somebody came up and they asked me to speak at like a devotional, a get together. It was probably all of 10 minutes. But other times, I'm praying on doors to be opened, and they haven't been opened yet. They're still shut. I'm still waiting on God. And if I said that I didn't get discouraged by waiting, then I would be lying to you, because discouragement is used by the devil to keep us from being patient. At least that's what I think. Hearing lies from the enemy like, you're not important, it's pointless. If there is a plan for you, then why hasn't that door been opened yet? These are all attacks from the enemy, and we need to remember that. God has a perfect plan and a perfect time. That doesn't mean it seems perfect or ideal to us in that instant, but when we look back in retrospect while standing in eternity, things will be much more clear to us. A faithful reliance on God amidst tribulation beacons our way through the storms of uncertainty, leading us to a safe harbor. Although that faithful reliance doesn't go very far without patience being the focal point. We must persist in patience. Romans 8:25 says, "But if we hope for that which we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with perseverance." We don't always see a big picture of what's going on, but we do follow the one that does. Our Father has it all figured out, and that makes me feel much better because I don't need to worry myself to death and try to get everything figured out. He already has me taken care of. I just need to remember that. Don't mistake me here either. I am very impatient. I have been with smartphones and information overload and instant streaming for so long now that patience really does become difficult at times. I still worry often. It's part of me being human. And many of us, if we were really honest, would probably say that we all feel like this from time to time. I think there is something that we need to keep in mind that the Bible I think there is something that we should keep in mind that the Bible tells us about waiting. It's found in Isaiah 40:31. It says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." In our surrender to God, we give Him our alliance. In our confidence or complete faith, God gives us our ability. God is an overcoming God, and He helps us overcome the hardest battles we face with patience. Ourselves are what can honestly get in the way of us being patient. We get in the way of patience when really what we need to do is we need to step to the side and let God do what He does. So, quick video. Sorry, that's all I've got for today, but I look forward to be able to share with you guys next week. So, thank you guys for watching. Good morning, everybody. Although it's almost midnight for me right now. If I look like a mess right now, it's because I am. I just got out of the shower. Everybody's in bed. We're rearranging the house a little bit. So I am going to record this video out in my car. We've got vacation coming up in just a few days, so I thought to myself, I would just go ahead and get the recording done now, maybe try to edit it tomorrow, and then get everything uploaded and have it like a premiered on Sunday or something like that. But I feel like that might have been a lot more information than y'all really needed. But So kindness. Kindness is the fruit of the Spirit for this video right now. I feel like this video should be a little bit more lighthearted, but knowing me, this will probably end up making somebody mad. Going off of my notes, it says kindness should be embedded within us as Christians, in what we say, in what we do, in how we treat others, in a first impression someone gets of us, literally in all things. So are you being kind to others? The world has this unbelievably high standard for Christians, like stupid high. It's so high that honestly it becomes impossible to keep at times. That way, whenever we do act like a normal human being and we do have a bad day, then suddenly we no longer are the Christians that we've been claiming to be. The world wants to give us this kind of a label. I think I've got a video. I think I have a video. It's called Brush It Off or Reflect or something like that. I did that a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago. One thing to remember about me is when I say I did something the other day, that could be 2 days ago or that could be 3 years ago. So I uploaded a video the other day that was called Brush It Off. And it covers what to do in situations where the world wants to constantly kind of mistreat us or be vindictive towards us, if that makes any sense. I feel like that video really coincides with some of what I'll be talking today, because in that video I talked very heavily about kindness as well and how to counter hurtful actions from others. So go check that video out if you like this one, or if you don't like this one, then just stop and go watch that one. So our kindness should honestly be flowing out of our lives in a very, very big way. We should be able to interact with almost anyone and then take notice that something is very different about us. Our pastor kind of preaches this to us quite a bit. And the simple truth is that, in fact, there is something different about us. It's Jesus. Jesus is what makes us so different. Jesus really does make the difference. In Ephesians 4:32, it says, "And be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you." We have God at our core, and God loves all. So much that in John 3:16, he tells us how much he really did love us. In that verse, we see an ultimate kindness that God did for us, the sinners that definitely didn't deserve this amazing kindness that God gave to us. Jesus dying on the cross, his son, he gave his son for us. At our core, we should have God's kindness. Jesus, in his entire ministry, gives example after example after example of kindness, eating with the most lowly of people, healing the broken. Jesus was so radical with Jesus was so radical with what was considered to be normal, and that's just, I think I worded that kind of wrong when I wrote this down. Jesus was just so radical against what was normal. And it just becomes another reason why I love seeing what Jesus did and all of his amazing things in the Bible. He was unconventional in his actions, and I believe that we as Christians are called to be the same. Hear me out. We can't shun somebody because of who they are currently. We can guide them, we can show them God's words, we can teach them and show them kindness, just like Jesus did. Speaking from my experiences and seeing kindness from those following God, that definitely had a huge impact on me before I gave my life to God. I can remember, even at the church that I'm going to right now, and I'm sure there's probably plenty of people in the church that maybe can remember me acting like this, but I can remember being so rude to Christians. They would just simply clap back with kindness. And it always threw me off whenever that would happen. It wouldn't be the reaction that I was really expecting from people. That kind of kindness where you just snap back with kindness, if that makes sense, it really does stick with people, especially those that are being vindictive towards you. When these people aren't following Christ, that kind of an action and that response, it doesn't make any kind of sense. Why repay evil with kindness? Why do that? Because the Bible instructs us to do so. In Romans 12:17 through 21, it says, "Repay no evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men.
Beloved, do not avenge yourself, but rather give place to wrath, for it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in doing so, you heap coals of fire on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Now, it's easy to repay. Now, it's always easy to repay. Excuse me. Now, is it really always easy to repay evil with kindness? It doesn't say that. It can be very difficult at times to do this, but remember that, if you remember a little bit just a few minutes ago, that very high standard that the world has for us as followers of Christ. They are looking for a reason to find something wrong in us, to justify why all Christians are bad and why all Christians are not really good followers of Christ. Don't give them the satisfaction of acting like that. Give them only kindness to change their opinion. Be revolutionary like Jesus was. The selfishness that is spreading around rampant, not only in the world, but sadly also in the church, is horrible. Today is a day for change. A revolution of kindness is very much overdue at this point. You may be wondering, how on earth can you change your mindset and your actions to display kindness? How can you change a worldly mindset that has been embedded into our daily living? How can we start this kindness and start this kind revolution? Jesus gave a great way to begin this process in Matthew 7 and 12. Therefore, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. How would you like to be treated? Respectfully? Lovingly? Kindly? It starts with you. It starts as soon as you dish out kindness, no matter what the circumstances that you have been given. This challenge may be difficult at times, but have no doubt that God is going to give you the ability to do it. God is the source of your strength. God is all-powerful. Nothing can stop the unstoppable God, and by that, the challenge in front of you is no longer impossible. Giving kindness is now possible. Change is now possible. Through God, the impossible now becomes the possible. This is really directed to be for kindness, but it applies to so many different aspects of our living. This week, think of how you want to be treated and apply that in your life. Let kindness be shown through you. Because when you are showing vindictive people kindness, you are showing them God. Pray for them. Pray that God uses you to be a witness, and through you and through your kindness, they can see God. Pray for that change. Pray for kindness, and let's see what God does. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you next time.
Good morning, everybody. Just realized how loud this chair was. So, up next for the fruit of the spirits that we have is goodness. I Googled the definition of goodness exactly, and it is the quality of being morally good or virtuous. And I feel like just by that definition, that's exactly what Jesus was and is. There isn't a single thing that Jesus did in the Bible that was really bad. He only did that which was good and virtuous. Some of the examples that I could really just think off the top of my head was healing the blind and the broken, befriending the sinners, bestowing great wisdom that is still used today. Don't tell me you can't go to a church and hear some great wisdom from Jesus. Jesus also gave out this overflowing kindness, loving children, loving the neglected, and of course, most importantly, dying for us and becoming the ultimate sacrifice so that we may be able to spend eternity with Him in heaven. And remember, that is just some of what Jesus did for us. Now, remember, we are supposed to behave like Jesus. That does mean that we are supposed to have His goodness in our life, helping those that are unable, being a light to those that are lost, loving those that the world thinks is below them. We are to be an ambassador for God in displaying His goodness. Galatians 6 and 10 says, Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith. It is so important, not only in our walk with God, but also in showing the world what God really is. God isn't just this horrible person that is looking for every reason to display his wrath upon us. No, it's the complete opposite. He is good, full of an endless mercy, unbelievably in love with us, his creation. We've put this false image on God, and for some reason we think that he hates us and that if we are ever out of line, then he is just going to wipe us from the face of the earth. When the reality is that God knows that we're imperfect and that we make mistakes, and that is why he sent Christ to die for us. In paying the price for our sins, not his, ours, he is giving us an opportunity to spend eternity with him, even amidst our flaws and all of our shortcomings. We don't need to work for this grace. It is literally being given to us freely if we only accept Jesus. That is perhaps the greatest showing of goodness I have ever heard of, and that anybody could even possibly think of. With that much goodness freely given to us, we should also be able to display just a small fraction of what Jesus does in our lives. That small amount of Jesus displayed in our lives could easily change somebody else's. It could be the first good deed that somebody has ever known. And that goodness could start with you. Well, really from Jesus, but you get what I'm saying. Goodness shouldn't just be something that we just kind of mess around with and show sometimes when we feel like it. No, not at all. It should be one of our characteristics displayed from our daily living and life. The fruits of the Spirit, like goodness, should be what God's Spirit produces in our lives. It should be in our endeavors to grow closer to him. We should begin to develop these fruits of the Spirit. That's what they're all about. Goodness goes without saying. People really do expect Christians to give out goodness, and honestly, so does God. It's not out of place to say that Christians should go the extra mile. It feels like I'm kind of going on a little bit of a rant on all this, so please forgive me, but it kind of is. So often I see those in church claiming God, but not displaying his goodness, and it's a very sad thing to witness. I grew up with quite a bit of this in different churches. I saw a lot of people that claimed God, and they didn't act like it. Neither did I, but my heart's gotten better over the years. We as Christians are called to be like Christ, especially in his character, which should become our character. I remember hearing a story about Abraham Lincoln, and I even looked up this fact just to kind of see if I was right. Abraham Lincoln was, for his time, a very tall person. He was about 6'4", which is the exact same height as myself, just so you know. But for him to be able to get any kind of clothes that fit him, it was very expensive because he had to have them custom made. So he had come to an agreement with a tailor that if Abraham Lincoln was to cut X amount of wood for this tailor, the tailor would make a pair of pants for Abraham Lincoln. So Abraham Lincoln had he had cut the agreed amount, and he felt so bad that the tailor was going to have to work extra hard and use extra materials on it that Abraham Lincoln ended up cutting double the amount of wood that they had originally agreed on. Let me see, where was I? That kind of goodness that Abraham Lincoln displayed right there. Oh, my hair is a mess. That kind of goodness that Abraham Lincoln displayed right there is what we really do need more of in our own lives. It's that kind of going the extra mile that shows goodness, and it displays God in our life. Especially today, I was on Facebook. I've just gotten back from vacation, and it made me sick. It made me flat out sick. Everything that I got caught up with on Facebook, I mean, just pure hatred. Everything that I saw on there. It was mainly on the political side of things, and let me say something very, very plainly on Beyond Faith. You're not going to see me get political about anything on here. I see this political divide, and it makes me so sad. So I'm not going to, I refuse to talk politics on here, just so anybody is wondering whether I will say that or not. No, I've got my beliefs, and I believe they differ from a lot of other people, and that's fine. That's why I won't talk about it on here. but mainly on the political side of things on Facebook, I saw just this pure, unbelievable hatred. I mean, it was such a serious lack of goodness, no matter which way you wanted to look at it, right or left. It was horrible. First day, back from vacation, I'm like, my goodness. But we could see a huge amount of unity if we began to see more goodness in everybody's life. But sadly, with a lacking of God at the center, then that's going to be pretty much impossible, because God is what truly gives us peace and goodness. There's this popular song that I've listened to quite a bit. Different artists have done their own covers on it. I think even at our own church, I think I may have heard them sing it there. Different tempos, but it's all the exact same message. The song is called Goodness of God. It talks about all that God has done for us. Being faithful, being a friend, being our Father, being so, so good to us is some of the lyrics in there. And I think that it's time that we really take those words to heart. Literally, listen to the words of the song after this video. Go listen to Goodness of God. I think the one version that I love the best is by Bethel Music. And listen to what they say about the goodness of God and see how you can start applying that goodness to your own life. I understand it's a song, but still, I love songs. I love worship music and all that. And it's a good way to kind of understand everything that God does. We could kind of reflect that in our own life. And I'm sorry, this really does seem like I am all over the place in this video, but at the core of what I'm talking about, this goodness, it is an imperative fruit of the Spirit that really needs so much attention, and we just often overlook it so much. Negating from this is not an option within Christian living. And I feel like I'm really going to come back and revisit goodness in a later video, maybe do an entire series just on this one subject point. Who knows, maybe I'll write a book about it someday. I don't know. That'd be something, wouldn't it? But there's just so much here with this one attribute that it's hard to really narrow down what exactly we need to talk about in this one video of just covering the fruits of the Spirit. There's so much here. I feel like it is so important. Looking into the Bible, we can see an awful lot about goodness in the book of Psalms. Psalms 23:6 says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all of the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Psalms 27:13 says, "I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Psalm 31:19, "Oh, how great is your goodness, which you have laid up for those who fear you, which you have prepared for those who trust in you in the presence of the sons of men." And lastly, Psalms 145:9. "The Lord is good to all, and his tender mercies are over all of his works." And I'm barely scratching the surface with some of these Psalms. There is literally so much in just the book of Psalms. With all of this talk of goodness, I can clearly look and see how important this one attribute of the fruit of the Spirit, how important this attribute of the fruit of the Spirit is. The depth of God's goodness is so much more than our understanding. It should be applied heavily within our own lives. I'll stop right here and I'll stop it with this right here, okay, is that in this goodness, there is so much that we have to offer this world that if we really begin to apply it, wow, I misread that completely, so let me try that again. It's been a long weekend. In this goodness, there is so much that we have to offer this world. Once we begin to really apply it into our living, goodness can really be a foundation for building a better world. So start today in building that foundation. If you want to see a better world like I do, then please start with goodness. Thanks everybody for watching, and I look forward to sharing in the next video. Good morning, everybody. I think it's hilarious how I always record these and it's always super late at night and I'm still saying good morning, but it is morning somewhere in the world. So today's video, faithfulness. As I began writing for this video, I couldn't help but get very, very excited, just because faithfulness beyond faith, I just feel like this fruit of the Spirit really just lines up with this entire devotional channel, and I have established that this is officially a devotional channel. Um, Faithfulness is more than just simply put faith. Let me break it down. It's kind of like a little bit of a domino effect, because I had to look at the definitions just to make sure that I was kind of on the right track or right train of thought with this. Faith is defined as a complete trust or confidence in someone or something. So in the case of us, God, in the case of Christians, or at least it should be, being faithful is remaining loyal and steadfast. So that's kind of like when we see God's words and what the Bible says, and we apply it within our own heart. And then faithfulness is putting into action what we are so faithful about. So see that domino effect, just to kind of break that down for you. So the Bible is incredibly rich with content. In case you didn't know, Captain Obvious here. It teaches values, beginning steps towards growth, how to be impactful for God, leadership applications, self-improvement, and so much more. Needless to say, it is the Word of God. It's vastly important, and it's what we should be studying regularly. Wow, I must be tired. It's what we should be studying regularly to grow and to walk closer with God. Through the Bible, God speaks directly to us. Personally, I try never to leave my house without having a physical copy of the Bible with me. I mean, sure, the Bible app on my phone is great, but there's just nothing quite the same as actually holding the physical copy of God's Word in my hands. It's an empowering thing, and I feel like it's a valuable thing to have. Call me crazy, but but there should be this deep reverence for God, and we should all strive to constantly strive to improve, to become better as Christians for Him. Faithfulness is a fire of passion within our living. I mean, my goodness, look at God and His amazing faithfulness towards us, His creation, and you'll be able to see exactly how crazy God is towards us or about us. The details of life and creation all around us, these are all evidence of God's deep care and devotion towards us. Once we analyze that and see all the things that are around us, we can really begin to live a life that is in a full devotion and love towards our Creator as well. It's a beautiful relationship. Once you have the right heart, it becomes a very beautiful thing. It becomes so full of so many great things. It becomes overwhelming the more that you think about it, all that God does for us. Let me put it this way. It's comical. This may seem like an odd way to describe this relationship, but please hear me out. God is infinite. I am mortal. We are mortal, okay? So the moment that I begin to think that I may even have a slight comprehension to the depth of God's love and care for me, that I might be able to compare the two sides of the relationship to each other, is something that's just truly comical. Anything that I say or can do or will do will never come close to what God does and what His care and devotion is for us. God deserves my all and so much more than that, and He deserves your all and so much more than that. And it seems so intimidating, but trust me, it is. I'm flawed, and in having that, I mean, am I really flawed when I'm having that thought? Yes, I am flawed no matter what I do. That's true. But listen to me for 1 second. I am nothing compared to God. So all of my anything that I can compare to my all compared to His all is very intimidating. Absolutely. However, God sees that, and He knows that everything about me, backwards, frontwards, upside down, left, right, any way that you want to think about it. He knows me, and He knows my heart, and He knows my thoughts better than I could ever possibly imagine. And I won't read it all, but Psalms 139. I really advise you to go read this, and I was actually thinking about maybe for one of the Beyond Faith side note videos that I was doing to read the thing in its entirety. But Psalms 139, 1 through 4 says, O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all of my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. That entire chapter, it talks about God's perfect and complete knowledge and understanding of us in that chapter. if you haven't read it, you need to go read it. I've read it several times preparing this video, and I'm going to read it over and over again. It is just, yeah, if you really want to kind of get a grasp of how well God knows us, then you need to go and read this. But the long and short of it is he knows us better than we could ever possibly know ourselves. It's an unbelievable knowledge with the depths of how well he knows us. All of the knowledge that God has over us, even our bad parts, and God is still for us. It's really an incredible thing. So when I begin to hear people say that Christians can kind of be like this type of fanatical or fanatic, I guess is maybe the right word to use. Fanatical because of the truth. Wow, am I reading my notes wrong? No. So when I begin to hear people say that Christians can be sort of fanatical, that is the truth, because the more that you dive into the scriptures, the more you'll be able to realize how much God cares about us, and the more in love you'll be able to become, or more in love you'll be with God. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words bad today. The more faith you will build, which means that the more faithful you'll get, which means that you'll go on living a life in faithfulness to God. That domino effect that I was talking about earlier. If I had to give another title to this video, I would call it The Domino of Faith, because all of it really kind of builds off of each other. And speaking of that, I was speaking to somebody at the church tonight, and I started thinking more and more about domino effect and how the fruits of the Spirit are kind of a domino effect. So I think I'll wrap all of these videos up at the end, and I'll do the dominoes of the fruits of the Spirit. But off subject, sorry, off subject. Let me give you a little story of what happened recently, so to kind of correlate faithfulness. Okay. Recently, my oldest son got into some trouble at home. It was nothing major, but it required me to give a firm talking to him. I could see by looking at him that he felt somewhat hurt by some of the things that I was saying, and it wasn't necessarily that I was saying anything wrong. It was correctiveness is what it was. I had to like make him realize the cause and effect of what he was doing and all that, and it sounded harsh, but it wasn't harsh. But after I started to notice how he was reacting to me about it, I had to break it down to him for why he was receiving the firm actions for what I was doing. I told him that it seemed like I was being mean, but what I was saying was really correcting him I was correcting him, and I was doing this for his long-term well-being. Living at home and growing up, he is learning firsthand that certain actions are not tolerated in the world. By my wife and I instructing him what is wrong and what is right, we are showing faithfulness to him. We can teach him now with a little correction before he goes out into the adult world and has to suffer the adult consequences for wrongful actions due to what could have been taught early in life. It's a lifelong commitment that we have. And it's a commitment that we're making to help him so that he doesn't really fully understand right now, but I feel like one day he really will. It's not that I don't have faith in my son growing into being a good man. I am faithful that he will, but by showing him my faithfulness in him, my actions, and by showing him my faithfulness now, I can show him the actions I am doing now are best for him in the long term. That way, maybe years from now, he can look back and he can understand in his older years exactly what he was doing. It's a domino effect. I love him so much, and that can often be above his understanding. And that's exactly what God does with us. And no, I didn't try to just compare myself to God. I was just kind of giving an example. But God is our Father, staying so deeply committed to us and loving us and being the example that we all need to be as well. And I hope that just from this video, you can realize just exactly how important the fruits of the Spirit are. And if you want to, feel free to reach out after seeing this video. I hope it makes more sense. I felt like I was kind of rambling when I was reading all these notes, but I was on a roll with it. But this is going to be something that I'll be visiting again here in the near future. I would love to hear your thoughts on faithfulness and how we should be acting towards God, how we should be acting and showing this faithfulness. Feel free to comment on this video on YouTube, send me a message on Facebook, however you want to reach out to me. If you have my phone number and you're watching these videos, feel free to send me your thoughts on it. I'd love to be able to hear your thoughts, because if if anything, I would want to constantly be able to learn, and getting somebody else's opinion on things. Maybe it can enlighten me on some things that I didn't realize, kind of like what was happening tonight when I was at church. But thanks, everybody, and I'm really looking forward to the next video, gentleness. See you next time.
Good morning, everybody. Gentleness. So when I think of gentleness, the first image that really comes to mind is Jesus, obviously. In a perspective kind of like this, Jesus is God. So Jesus had the ability to do whatever he wanted. He had the knowledge to lead some of the greatest and most intellectual people in the entire world, but he didn't pursue the greatest intellectual minds of the time. He chose basic, average, typical, possibly undereducated individuals. And he did that by choice. He wanted to teach and care for these people in a way that would require a special type of gentle care and bestow a large amount of responsibility and choose them to make a massive impact in the world. That's pretty astounding. Jesus knew that the people that he was choosing wouldn't always understand the magnitude of what he was trying to say, but he wanted it that way for a specific reason. I feel like he did that to kind of be an example in a special way to show us his gentleness. I really don't have any kind of doubt that many times Jesus could have been very easily frustrated with the disciples and snap at them, but he doesn't. He gives instruction and simple illustrations to help teach them. Jesus showed them a manner of treatment towards others that was very unexpected. Now keep in mind that at the time, the Jews were expecting like a great military leader to come and free them from the tyranny that was Rome at the time. And Jesus comes as, a carpenter. So that's very unexpected. But he comes as also, like, as the Bible describes him, he comes as this gentle person, a teacher. Not this massively robust knight in shining armor that everybody had imagined. Jesus came with gentleness. One thing that's become very apparent to me in studying the Bible is that God does things unexpected just to show us his glory and that his possibilities are truly endless. Just in case you forget the magnitude of what God has already done for us, in creation or in the universe or at the cross, God presents us with gentleness. It's a detailed care for us, and it's powered by a great love. The spirit of gentleness is a byproduct of love. We're required to love others as Jesus loved others, and with that love, gentleness is very paramount. I mean, can you imagine trying to be in a relationship that has no gentleness? It seems like that would be something that would create future problems with a shaky foundation as a starting point there. I mean, it's kind of like, it works kind of like this. If you love, then you choose to also care. So love plus care equals gentleness. Simple equation, right? In 2 Timothy 2:23 through 26, it says, "But avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. And a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient, in humility, correcting those who are in opposition, if God perhaps will grant them repentance, so that they may know the truth, and that they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will." This is why showing gentleness is really so important, because in doing this, teaching instead of screaming at somebody, we could potentially help them see how they are in slavery to sin. That gentleness could really open their eyes to where they really are. If you want to be a better witness, then start your witness by showing gentleness. I've seen it happen plenty of times, and I'm sure there's many other people that can get on here and say the same thing. Where you've heard about the type of in-your-face Christians that are just screaming at people that they're on their way to hell. That statement may be true, but I'm not trying to be rude when I'm saying this. That delivery is completely horrible. Gentleness can be such a powerful spirit to have, because it can allow us to get past the walls that so many people have put up around themselves. Piece by piece, we can show people Jesus and give them an example of how he would have approached others as well. even if you're like me and you have such a very small amount of knowledge about the Bible and everything theological about it, I can still get a simple concept like being gentle with others and telling them about Jesus. When you are gentle, you are approachable, and that's exactly how Jesus is. He's very approachable. He died so that we can easily access him, and that was the entire purpose of Christ, for us to easily approach him. Does it make sense? Because remember, we are supposed to be this example of Christ, so we need to have that same approachability. Is that even a word? Approachability that Jesus has. So one last thing, because this was one more thought that I had about Jesus and gentleness. Luke 18:15 through 17. It says, "One day some parents brought their little children to Jesus so he could touch and bless them. But when the disciples saw this, they scolded the parents for bothering him. Then Jesus called for the children and said to the disciples, 'Let the children come to me. Don't stop them, for the kingdom of God belongs to those that are like these children. I tell you the truth, anyone who doesn't receive the kingdom of God like a child will never enter it.'" This is an amazing statement to me of the mentality that we need to get ourselves away from. Yes, childlike faith. I get all that in this verse. I understand that. But Jesus doesn't scold us for a lacking of understanding. He welcomes us. Jesus sees us as a valuable and precious creation, and he is gentle in his care for us. So that's all I got for today. Short video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. But I am excited for the next video or the next fruit of the Spirit, the final fruit of the Spirit that I'll be talking about in the next video, self-control. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the final fruit of the Spirit, self-control. This might be a touchy subject for some people, a few people, a few people, whatever. But this is substantially important to have within our lives. After we've spent the past few weeks, months talking about the different fruits of the Spirit and applying them into their lives, we still face a battle within ourselves. Sinfulness. Self-control is needed to help us abstain from the want of sin within our own lives. In many ways, this can be the most difficult of the fruits of the Spirit to apply. It does take a lot of discipline, and it does take a lot of dedication that doesn't necessarily work overnight. It takes time and practice to fully develop our self-control over our sin. Will we fail? At times, maybe. But when standing in the face of eternity with a guiding light, we learn to take a step, and then another step, and then another step, until those steps become a run towards the Father of eternity. Do not let failure make you say, "I am defeated." Instead, look to the past at all of your failures in your life and realize that because of those failures, you are more dependent than ever on the source of your strength. We learn from our mistakes. We find a resolve for improvement, and we apply for future circumstances. That is self-control. In 1 Thessalonians 5:22 through 23, it says, "Abstain from every form of evil. Now may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely, and may your whole spirit, soul, and body be preserved blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ." The sinfulness we are tempted with here on earth may currently seem like a lot to handle, but 10, 20, 30, 50, or 100,000 years from now, we will see that the struggles we push past pushing past what's waiting for us within eternity. This world wants us to truly believe that what it offers is so valuable, and that we must give into our selfish wants and our fleshly desires. But the reality is that the only true valuable thing is what Jesus is offering. A free gift of salvation. Without that, everything in this world becomes just null and void. Over the past few weeks, I've come to realize one thing, and this may seem like I'm taking a little bit of a shift because I had to stop my writing here about a month and a half ago, and then I've carried this back on within the past few weeks. But over the past few weeks, I've come to realize something, that at the beginning of writing this video, my thoughts of self-control were mainly focused on staying away from our sin nature. But I've learned that self-control is so much more than that. It also keeps us within a firm faith of God. following God and knowing that there is a reason can be hard. It can be a hard pill to swallow. But looking into uncertainty, these long past few weeks have been, truly tough. But in the midst of all of the chaos that's been happening, my mom gave me some fantastic advice. She told me that God is our great comforter. That while we are in our pain, He can reach into our life and He can give us this supernatural peace. It doesn't make sense until you're really standing within that situation, but it's true. When I really begin to just give my situation to God, I could sense Him letting me know that it will be all right. It may not be a completely ideal situation, but it's a situation that God already knew would happen, and it's not a surprise to God, I don't feel. I'm not going to talk about it too much right now, but the entire situation or the past few weeks. But in a future video, I will definitely talk a little bit more about it. And maybe multiple videos on here. I think some of the upcoming videos will be a little bit more difficult to talk about, but I am looking forward to sharing them within the next week or so with you. But as for now, I just want to let you. Boy, it must be early. I am misreading this completely. As for now, I want you to remember self-control is applicable to many parts of our life. It keeps us in line. It keeps us focused. Keeps us striving to be closer to God. As for now, thank you for being so patient and waiting in these videos, or in this video. Fruits of the Spirit are something that I am sure that I will look back to and make more videos on, beyond faith about. Maybe have discussions with somebody at some point on here. I don't know. That would be awesome. But thank you for watching this series. This is the conclusion. It's a lot shorter, but it's a little bit more difficult to write in between everything. But I can't wait to share again with you guys next week. So thank you.